project related to light electrical vehicles. Mr. Winder, the floor is yours.
Ok, merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais continuer en anglais. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This ties in quite well, I think, with the previous presentation by Sergio Fernandez. It's about urban mobility as well and urban space. So that was very interesting. Unfortunately, unlike you, I don't have lots of nice photos because it's a new project that is just starting. Maybe 1 year from now we will have nice photos. So it's about electric light vehicles. That's just the contents. We'll talk. It's about a European project which is 3 years long, which has started recently with 6 pilot cities around Europe. So electric light vehicles, what are they? They are what we call L category. M category are cars and N are trucks and freight vehicles. And the L category is everything from 2, 3 and very light 4-wheel vehicles. In many European cities, especially southern Europe, especially Italy, Spain, south of France, a lot of mopeds, a lot of diesel scooters, petrol scooters and so on. There is an opportunity to change a number of those to electric traction. There is also an opportunity to get people out of the cars but who can't necessarily use public transport or for trips where public transport isn't that convenient to use one of these vehicles instead. So there is a lot of opportunity to move towards light electric vehicles, and all the electromobility it's come on a lot, electromobility, in the last few years, what we call electrification of road transport, but most of it is focused on cars, on car sharing schemes, on electric buses, trucks, municipal vehicles and so on, and not so much the light vehicles. So this is an opportunity, and this project is to raise the awareness of these kinds of vehicles because they're not that common, not that known. People don't have an opportunity to try one, and also to make it more practical because there are barriers such as lack of charging facilities or lack of interoperability of charging facilities, not so many sharing schemes. Parking is an issue as well. So this project, which is called LV10, it's an acronym for Electrified L Category Vehicles, integrated into the transport and electricity networks. And the integrated bit is quite important. We're not just saying everyone use light electric vehicles all the time, please. No, we don't want to take people away from cycling and walking. We don't want to take people away from public transport. We want to integrate these systems as a complementary mode to existing networks, to public transport, for example, for multimodal journeys. And this project is a 3-year project led by ICCS. It's an institute of the National Technical University of Athens. It has 21 partners, and we started last November, and we will be putting in usage schemes rather a little bit like what was already described in Madrid, in 6 pilot cities with a common methodology and evaluation, a very large-scale evaluation and scaling up, where we can then provide lessons learned and recommendations that all cities can learn from. So, although we're not covering all of Europe, we're happy to liaise with any existing scheme or any other interested city. Our 6 cities are here. You see there's a little bit of a bias towards Italy. We have Bari, one of the municipalities of Rome, a district in the southeast, Municipo Nove, number 9, and Genoa, just along the coast from here. We also have Trikala, a small city in the middle of Greece. We have Malaga, and we have Berlin. So you can see all of them, apart from Berlin, are the kinds of cities where you have a lot of scooters and mopeds and two-wheelers already. Berlin is a little bit different in terms of climate, in terms of mobility. It has a very developed public transport system, but it also has a very well-developed electric vehicle charging network, the best one in Germany. And so the focus in Berlin is going to be a bit more interoperability of charging. So we have different sized cities in different places. And we're at the sort of user needs phase at the moment. So we've just done a lot of statistical data collection on cities. We've done a big public perception survey of around 7,000 people in 5 languages in all of these 6 cities, and a series of interviews with fleet operators. As was said before, the freight side is also very important. This is not just for passengers, it's for delivery companies from big ones. We talked to Poste Italiana, Italian Post Network, right down to small companies, family companies with one vehicle who are delivering pizzas or flowers or whatever. So we have a lot of this. We've collected a load of data already. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 very small examples. For example, congestion level. One of the indicators is the amount of traffic congestion at peak time compared with off-peak. You can see it's more serious in Rome than in the other cities. We have number of electric vehicle charging stations there on the right. As you can see, in Trikala is a small city in Greece. There aren't any at the moment. Berlin has quite a lot. On the left, you have Bari, which looks quite small, but given as a percentage of the population in the city area, is actually quite a good network because it's a smaller city. So we have these are the barriers and the opportunities. Other things we looked at, for example. There's density of the city, age of the population, economic profile, the quality of public transport, things like the weather. People are more apt to use open 2-wheel vehicles in nice sunny countries than in winter in northeastern Germany. Also hilliness, how hilly or flat a place is. One of our cities which has quite a high modal share for bicycles is Berlin, another is Malaga. They are both quite flat cities. Just along the coast from here is Genova. There's a very, very hilly place for people who know it, and the mode share for cycling is really low, as you can expect, but there is maybe an opportunity to use electric light vehicles. Some statistical this was a part of a public perception survey. I'll just give some examples from 2 of the cities to show the difference in mobility patterns. So we have Malaga and Genoa. On the left, you have Malaga. On that first column is the number of people who own or use or rent a bicycle, an ordinary pedal cycle. You see the green at the bottom on the left-hand column are bicycle owners. The black at the top are people who use a shared scheme, so there's obviously a very good bike sharing scheme in that city, and the orange in the middle are people who do both. They both own a bike and they share one. The third column there, 2-wheel ICE, internal combustion engine light vehicles, so there's mopeds, scooters, motorbikes, so you've got quite a few in Malaga, but nothing compared with what you see on the right in Genoa, where there are more people with motorcycles than bicycles because of the hilliness. And there on the far right, you see in Genoa, people who do not own or use any bicycles. So that's a big number in Genoa, whereas in Malaga, most people are using 2-wheel vehicles, at least sometimes, not all the time, but it's kind of in the culture. So these geographic and cultural things are things you have to consider. There isn't one size fits all. Every city is different, with a different climate and topography and transport network and culture. This was quite interesting. We asked people if we explained in an online survey in all the languages of these cities what electric light vehicles were. We showed them photos, and we said, would you use a sharing scheme if there was one in your city, a convenient one in your city? And you have the dark green at the bottom for each city. Yes, I would do frequently. And then the light green above it is, yes, I would occasionally, then maybe. And then a few people in blue said, I would rather use my own vehicle, my own ELV, rather than share one. And the red is, no, I'm not interested. And the grey at the top is, I don't know. But you see, this green is quite predominant across pretty much all the cities. In Rome, you had something like 77% saying I would use one either regularly or occasionally. I know this is stated preference. What they say they will do might not be the same as what they actually do, if there is one. But there is a lot, I think, of interest there, maybe latent demand, suppressed demand. You see, maybe the least enthusiastic city is the fourth one along, which is Berlin. But even there, you've got around half who are interested in using an ELV sharing scheme. And another question we asked, and as I said before, we want to integrate with public transport. We don't want to take people away from public transport or to take them away from cycling or walking. We want to take them away from two-wheel petrol vehicles and ordinary petrol cars. And we asked, would you consider using ELV as part of a multimodal journey, for example, with public transport? And you have all this green, which is yes. In most cities, 88% in Rome, 79% in Genoa, and then it's really quite a lot of interest there. And what we're starting to look at is how can we promote this kind of thing, have sharing schemes at bus and train stations, have some kind of integrated ticketing where your public transport smart card can be used to rent an ELV. So this is all coming back to the mobility as a service concept as well. This is all being worked on individually by each city, but we're having a certain amount of coordination. And then we said, well, what are the barriers? What would you really want to make these kinds of vehicles more attractive to use than a car, for example, or a petrol motorcycle? And the top one, the second, this is across all the cities, by the way, the second bar is we want sufficient electric charging infrastructure. That was the top one in every city. They need the infrastructure. And the second one in most cities was the first bar, which is sufficient secure parking. Parking is an issue, especially leaving one outside. It's at risk of damage or theft or vandalism. People don't have a place to keep one. So parking is an important thing. On the far right, you see this other quite large bar on the right, which is incentive schemes for purchase or renting. Of course, there are many countries already have incentive schemes to buy electric car. So this is also something of interest. Maybe less important are things like navigation services aimed at EL vehicles, user assistance services, and one of the medium-large bars in the middle was allow use of bus or cycle lanes by certain electric light vehicles. Of course, this comes down to either national or local policies on road use, what kinds of vehicles can use what lanes, bus lanes, cycle lanes. So this is a little bit political. And another important one is have an integrated payment card for sharing EL vehicles, electric light vehicles and public transport. Very briefly, we talked to a lot of fleet operators. Well, not a lot. We talked to a limited number in each city, but just to go a bit more deep into what their needs are. We talked to 20 companies that currently use light vehicles, not electric ones, light petrol vehicles. 7 use electric cars or vans, full-size electric car vehicles, and 22 don't use any. And it was quite positive in that 15 out of 49 are already planning to use electric light vehicles or at least looking at the option, and another 25 would consider them. So only a small number said that they would not consider electric or ELVs, and usually those small number are companies that need a big vehicle for their goods. So quite a lot of them including some large parcels companies, said, well, we would consider ELVs, not for the whole fleet, but maybe on average, they were saying around 20-25% of their deliveries could be done by this kind of vehicle. So there is interest out there. We asked them other things about what the barriers are in their city and what kind of infrastructure would you need. This will all come a bit later, so I'm not going to go into all the details. But there is interest, and the freight and delivery side is a very important part of this. So we're using this data to develop some usage schemes. So you have ELV ownership, and then on the right you have sharing schemes. And the sharing schemes during the demonstration phase of this project, which will start at the end of this year, they will be free for a year. So the idea is to really get people to experience them and use them and not have any kind of payment. So they will be aimed at commuters, including multimodal schemes, public transport terminals and so on, for occasional users, leisure and shopping. We could also have sharing schemes for visitors. Bari in the south of Italy, for example, they have a lot of visitors coming on cruise ships, and they said they were interested in maybe having a scheme where a visitor coming on a ship can rent one for a day or half a day and go around the old town. And then we have the delivery side, which is mostly focused on ELV ownership. I think delivery companies are not going to use a sharing scheme unless it's a very, very occasional a company that needs to only use a vehicle maybe once a week or something. So what are we doing? We're looking at the infrastructure requirements. So charge points, we're putting in more charge points in the cities with roaming capability among different networks. Charging hubs, this is something that is going to be proposed for Rome. This photo here, this is one for electric bikes, but ones for larger electric vehicles are also being designed. So this green contraption, it fits about 15 bikes in there. You can have a smart card that opens it. You store your bike in there safely and it charges. Specific paths or lanes, that's a bit of an infrastructure issue, and it's very much down to the municipality what kind of space can be given to these kinds of vehicles. Access to restricted traffic zones. For those of you who know Italy, many Italian cities have a ZTL, a limited traffic zone, and many other cities around Europe as well. And one political option can be to ban certain kinds of vehicles, but to allow light electric vehicles into these zones. And then parking places at key trip attraction locations, work, education, public transport, and so on. So the city of Genova is proposing, for example, reservable free parking for this kind of vehicle in the city centre to encourage people not to use a car. Also, we have a lot of ICT requirements. So information and communication technologies, so location finding apps, apps for everything really, booking, brokering services, parking finder, charging station finding, real-time navigation aimed at that kind of vehicle. So maybe using the safest or the easiest route, or using special lanes if there are any. Fleet monitoring and digital coach app, which is aimed at delivery companies, which includes kind of training, online training for drivers, a serious game app, and also an incentive management app, so people can collect points when they use one of these, and which can be used in maybe local businesses or local public transport, for example. This requires a lot of communication as well, so promotion campaigns are starting up, as well as free testing by citizens, by delivery companies, because people often don't know if they want to use one of these until they've tested it. So it's just giving people the opportunity to test is important. In Genoa, they're going to have a permanent exhibition to allow providers to show their products and people can learn about them. And we have a regional support network being built in each city to provide feedback as well. So the next steps, we are currently finalising the different usage schemes in each city. So we're using all this data we've collected to do the usage schemes. Then the demonstrations are being set up over summer and will start at the end of this year. We will have a lot of data being logged from actual use, and this will show us the real driving patterns, as well as questionnaires of users to see what they liked, what they didn't like, how they would have travelled if this kind of vehicle had not been available. We want to see where the modal shift is coming from, and also the ICT tools, what is useful to people and what is not useful. We will eventually scale all these impacts up to city level to see what kind of wide impact a really proactive scheme like this can have on a city, and look at the market uptake and cost benefit, and also provide information and guidelines to ELV manufacturers, to city authorities, a kind of best practice handbook, and to service providers. So that's, it's fairly early stages, but I think there's something quite interesting and different happening in a new area of electromobility. Perhaps by this time next year, you will see this happening in in the 6 cities in Europe where we are developing the schemes. You have the website and Twitter there if you wish to follow us. So that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you.